Hey guys, today on Torcom Talk, we have guest Mike Frey. He is the founder and CEO of Pacific GeoSource. This is a incredibly interesting company that has come up with a new sustainable way of doing pavement, which is incredibly educational for how that can save us a ton of money from all sorts of things when it comes to tax dollars that are going towards the city of Bend or any city that you're living in. Mike and I also riff pretty good about philosophically off of each other, talking about different books that we enjoyed, different motivations. Turns out we learned this in the middle of the podcast that we both went through an earth-shattering divorce, and that changed us both for the better, and we grew a ton from that. And so we both go in depth on that and are very vulnerable and enjoy it, because I think it's these kind of vulnerabilities where people can learn the most from people, and when that guard is down, and that's definitely happening in this episode. So enjoy. Mike, pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, awesome, man. We haven't known each other too long. It's been like a couple of weeks, but we've been chatting a bit on the phone and been having some pretty fascinating conversations. But one is, your company is very intriguing and sustainable. But if you could basically start by letting us know, like, Pacific GeoSource, who you guys are, and then what do you guys do?
Okay, yeah, sure. So Pacific GeoSource is a team of people comprised of about 20 people all around the nation, and we focus on asphalt pavements and parking lots, and specifically trying to bring an industry that's still in the 20th century into the 21st century, and we're doing that through some innovative technologies that we add to the asphalt pavements into our parking lot projects. So
okay. And what is that? What are those innovative things? Why are current pavement solutions in the 20th century still?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly common across the world, actually, to be where we're at. Specifically in the United States, back in 1957, the government commissioned a study on how roads work, and we're still using that information from 1957 to design our roads. But since then, we've done lots and lots of studies of different technologies and products and construction practices that have yielded very good results. So with that, we've taken those results and adopted those to the industry. So what we're specifically doing is taking rock, asphalt, and concrete, which are all basically strong in compression. You can push down on them, but when they go in tension this way, not as strong, actually way less strong. So all the cracks you see out in the road, all the ruts that you see in a gravel road or a dirt road, all the potholes that you see.
Which in Bend we're familiar with.
Yep, sure. Yeah. I saw some on the way over here.
Yeah.
So those are all tensile failures. And so what we've done is we've gone out and found tensile reinforcement to add to those three products. And it's been a great thing for us. So
how does it make it last longer, sustainable, whatever?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, the asphalt and pavements have a few enemies, and Bend provides a perfect mix of all of those enemies, and it's the environment.
So ice, water.
Yep. Water, which is part of the environment, and then loading. And so the heavier the loads, the quicker the pavement's going to fail. The more water that's there, the quicker the pavement's going to fail, and the worse the environment is. So freeze-thaw cycles or big swings in temperature. Asphalt is a flexible product that moves with the temperature. So as Bend goes from 32 degrees in the morning to 76 in the afternoon, that's hard on your pavement. So specifically, let's talk about water. When water gets into a pavement, it weakens the whole pavement. And so as soon as your asphalt cracks and there's a little crack in it, or there's a rut in it, that's a place for water to hang out and just sit there.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what we're trying to do is prevent those cracks from ever happening.
The water goes into the pavement freezes, pavement cracks open. You guys are preventing that. I got a quick question for you. Why is it, since you're in this industry, that when I look at a commercial like job, like if a Walmart or a company wanted to build an asphalt pavement road or a parking lot and they paid for that privately, why is that significantly cheaper than if the government does the same job?
I don't know in all scenarios. So there's prevailing wage within the public industry.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that the way that projects are bid within the public industry is a little bit different. And so it's designed to be low bid. You put out a project, different companies compete on it.
I wanted to just back up really quick. So with this thing, how long have you owned Pacific GeoSources? When did you start it?
I started it in August of 2009.
Okay, so we are on 11 years.
Yep.
Almost.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, we're in
August.
the middle of 10 years.
Yeah.
Going towards 11. Yep.
Okay. How many people now?
We're 23
Okay.
people.
So, that's awesome.
Thank
you have 23 people. How did you grow? Where'd the idea come from?
Yeah. So I've always loved construction
Mm-hmm.
since a young kid. Went from a very young age, knew I wanted to go into that industry. And so upon graduating from Oregon State with my construction engineering management degree, I went immediately out into the industry. I think that was 2007 that I graduated. Job offers from Bellevue, Washington through to LA, dozens of job offers. And ultimately chose one in Portland. Within 2 years, the recession had caught up enough that I was laid off. So at that point, I had, I think, a 1-year-old child, new family, and needed work. So went back out into the field and talked to a great company that I was super excited about. They do light rail projects all over the United States, and I was a little bit more educated about how to talk to potential employers about what it is I'm getting into. So I asked more questions like, hey, do you guys work on Saturdays? Yeah. Do you guys work on Sundays? Yeah. You know, about how much a week does a person work in the office here? And it was like 60 to 72 hours a week. And
Sounds awful.
It sounded like a lot.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked at myself and said, you know, if I'm going to be putting that kind of time into something, I want to do it for myself. So that was kind of the motivation to start the business. The idea behind what it is we're going to do and what we're going to sell came from my practice in the industry. I did 20 different jobs while I was in that 2-year stint, different commercial jobs, public jobs, residential subdivisions. The housing industry in Portland was going gangbusters, so a lot of variety. On some jobs, we would use this product called GeoGrid that reinforced the rock and made it stronger. But then in the exact same application, different project, maybe a couple miles away, we weren't using it. And so I'd kind of scratch my head and ask curious questions, and people would say, just don't worry about it, you know, just do whatever the engineer says to do. And, okay. And so I did a little bit more digging and found out that these products work everywhere for every application that falls under its guidelines. And it's just a matter of whether the engineer chooses to use it or chooses not to use it. And that choice is solely the engineer's choice. Now, at no point during my education and or that engineer's education were we ever told about these products. We were told that asphalt fails in tension and that concrete fails in tension. and that aggregate fails in tension. But we were really only told to do about it in the case of concrete. In concrete, we add rebar, and they told us how to design with that and showed us how to design with that. And so in practice out in the industry, there is no standardization of use for our products, and therefore it was left up to the engineer. With that realization came the realization that there's a lot of engineers out there that still need to learn about this and that still need to be educated so that they can utilize these products. And so that's where the niche was started, and that's where the company was founded, first on GeoGrid and then bringing other tensile reinforcement products into the portfolio as we grew. So
who was we in the beginning?
We is the proverbial me.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, first 2 years, it was everything from sales to bookkeeping to deliveries to warehouse guy to IT guy.
Janitor.
I taught myself how to build a website on, I don't even know if it's used anymore. I don't remember what it was used or called back then. But
Sure.
I taught myself how to build a website and went for it. So.
And so when you went for it, you had this niche in mind of like people need to use this to make their pavements last how much longer?
So it depends, but we say double the life of the pavement.
Okay.
So
What's the typical life of pavement?
that also depends. In Bend, Oregon, I'd say about 2 to 3 years.
So instead of 2, 3, 4 to 6, how much more does it cost?
Typically about 10 to 15% more.
Okay, so 100% more life for 10 to 15% more cost.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So, okay, so you see this niche and you get it growing. When did you make your first hire?
First hire was in 2011, early 2011, a salesperson to help me spread the word and spread our reach a little bit. It was an individual up in the Seattle, Washington area to try and grow further up the Pacific Northwest. So.
How has that been working for you over the years? And by that I mean sales and growing your sales department.
Very good.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
People and word. You know, it's I will admit that the first couple of employees I hired was probably not my best hires.
Yeah.
But in time, I learned how to connect with people during the interview process and really find some great hires. And so I've had some individuals on board with me now for 7-8 years that have been a huge part of this growth and have stuck with me to get to where we are now. So
what are they doing? Like the sales is a hard thing to build for a lot of businesses. It takes a certain person. So let's start with that. What's a certain person that you're looking for when it comes to somebody to do sales?
Relationship, in my opinion, is the most important part of sales.
So having prior relationships or to develop new ones?
The ability to develop new ones, the ability to maintain relationships, the ability to talk with virtually any individual, the ability to connect with individuals, the ability to stay interested in individuals. Okay. I think it's really easy for people to talk about themselves. It's much harder to stop thinking about yourself and think about the person that you're trying to sell something to.
Well, that requires listening.
That does. It requires asking questions. Yep.
It's a very difficult thing to do, is active listening, when you're literally listening to every word and not thinking of what you're going to be saying next, until you make a habit of it.
It in my business and with our specific product line, it's the most difficult thing for our salespeople to grasp, because they walk into a city like the city of Bend, they see all the cracks and potholes and they see the struggle. They know walking into that meeting that we have the solution.
Yeah.
So how do you tease that out of the conversation? How do you let that transpire without just talking the customer's ear off the whole time and saying, hey, you need this solution? It's a very difficult it's a very difficult art to master, for sure.
And how do you train that? What do you tell them to ask for?
We So I developed a process about 2 years ago to slow things down and categorize where you're at within a sales call. And so it's a 9-step process that's very similar to, I'm sure, everyone else's process, but you go through the introduction and you start the conversation, and then you start needs probing and asking questions, if questions. You know, if you were City of Bend and I was going to come in and talk to you, and I'd say, hey, if you could make your roads last longer and have less of a need to reconstruct them or overlay them, would that interest you, and what would your concerns be around that?
That would interest me. I'm just afraid it costs too much.
Correct. Yeah, that's a great concern, and a lot of our customers have that same concern. So if I were able to show you some bid tabulations from the construction cost in other areas around Deschutes County, would that satisfy your concern about cost?
Yeah, that
good.
worked pretty well. So you're looking for people that can relate with people. If you have somebody that has, where do you sit when it comes to sales experience? Do you look for sales experience? Do you want people fresh?
I've been all over the board on that one.
So have I.
I've been all over the board. Right now I'm looking for fresh.
Why?
My experience has been that hiring existing salespeople, they already have a paradigm on how sales should be done. And that hasn't translated well. I can't particularly nail down the reason why that hasn't translated well, but it hasn't. Being able to adopt the differences in what needs to take place within selling our product, or the sales cycle within selling what we do, it seems to be a struggle. So my last 3 hires, one was computer science engineer, one was a mathematics graduate, and the other one was in construction, but not sales.
So you take them out and you put them in the sales, and how successful were those 3?
Very successful.
All of them?
All of them.
Relative to, have you hired like a car salesman or anything of that nature before?
I haven't. I hired a guy that was actually in asphalt sales. He worked for a paving contractor.
Sounds perfect.
Right? Yeah. He knows the industry. He knows who to talk to, who knows the owners. And
what happened?
He couldn't get out of his own way. He had an idea of how the sale should be done and wasn't able to take constructive criticism on ways that he could improve upon his process and do it better.
So how do you pay then? Not exactly what you do, but it's a commission, salary.
It's a base salary and a commission. Okay. So we're looking for an individual that is fairly sophisticated and
So sophistication, does that mean a base salary?
Not necessarily. It takes a really special salesperson to go 100% commission. That takes a lot of confidence and a lot of gusto. I don't feel like we have, I guess put this another way, we're doing so much new market development that putting somebody into a market on 100% commission would almost be guaranteed suicide, because it takes so long to build up and develop that market no matter where we go. So future markets, like right now I've got my market development manager in Reno, Nevada. So if we can get that market up and running for us to a point where we can drop an individual in there to cover it, then we can move on to a different market and just keep covering markets all over the United States that way. So
okay. How often do you look at sales as a multiple person touch per client, or one person for the whole thing?
It depends. Some of my bigger clients, it's multiple people touching the client. But the majority of our clients prefer one point of contact, one person to route questions, concerns,
throughout
comments.
the entire sales cycle.
Throughout the entire sales cycle. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, it's fascinating. So, so you've been building it up for 11 years. Is this your, were you in entrepreneurship before Pacific GeoSource?
So, no, I definitely always had the mindset that I was going to head that direction and own my own business at some point. I thought it was going to take a lot longer to get my feet on the ground than 2 years. 2 years being in the industry, I don't think was necessarily enough to teach me everything I needed to know, but enough to be dangerous. So
you did it.
I did it.
What were the things that made you feel like you were going to be a entrepreneur one day through life?
I've always kind of been a natural born leader, I guess. So I've always kind of fallen into that category. So there's that, but I would say the biggest part is family. My dad owned businesses. His dad owned businesses. My great-grandfather owned one business, which was the bag boy golf cart, the thing that you put, he invented that and then ran that for a number of years and sold it. And so it's just kind of gone through Frey's generation after generation. My brother runs my dad's company. And so
did that feel like there was an expectation for you then to own a business?
Zero.
No, just the
zero
drive was there.
Expectation. Even zero expectation to go into my dad's business. He was so he's been my main advocate through this whole thing and my main sounding board and the guy that helped me definitely get the business off of the ground. I owe a huge amount of my success to him and his mentorship and where he's been and his ability to just let me go with it and let me do what I wanted to do and not try and hold me back or guilt me or shame me into staying in the family business. He just has wanted me to run my whole life. And so
so you were saying earlier, like you've kind of noticed just through life that you'd end up becoming an entrepreneur. If it's not from expectation, then what was another thing that could have been driving you towards leadership or entrepreneurship?
I really enjoy the freedom of being able to call my own shots and make my own schedule and kind of create my own life. I think that there's several things that you could do in your work life that could accomplish that. Most of them are like a sole proprietorship, like you have a photography company and you choose as many weddings or as many shoots as you want to choose type thing.
Yeah.
That certainly intrigues me, but the dynamics of running a business with employees and those employees have opinions and they have lives and they have feelings and they're trying to grow themselves. There's something really satisfying about working with people like that and growing with people like that and being able to look back at Pacific GeoSource 5-6 years ago and the sales meetings we were having or the marketing material that we're putting out or any of that kind of stuff, and to have seen that evolution and have gone through that with a group of people it's really special. It's fun.
It's pretty, I'd agree. It's really satisfying over the 6 years that Mazama's been here to watch it evolve from what it was, the size it was, out of a house, growing a bunch of times, and just a completely different even product that we're delivering now, and completely different. It was just knocking on doors around Bend, talking to, like local restaurants, and now we're across the country. Is cool, and I feel proud about that as well. The setting schedule thing is cool, but then there's the other side to the coin of just like it also kind of, you're never off the clock. You're never off of a schedule.
That's 100% right.
And,
yeah.
How do you manage that? Or do you?
I do. It's a relatively recent thing that I've been able to manage that in a way that feels right.
What do you mean feels right? Like you're not feeling guilty?
Yeah, sure. It's I've always known that taking time off, taking vacations, taking time for yourself is something important. 6-7 years ago, I couldn't do that without feeling guilty or feeling like there was something that needed my attention. It has been within the last 2 years that I've been able to do that. I feel like I've heard something before, like you've got to slow down to speed up or something like that. It's definitely playing true.
Why do you think that's true? Because we keep on getting told that like Gary Vee and all that stuff, like work, you know, you want it, you fucking get it, and that sort of shit. Like Mark Cuban, like work as if there's somebody. What's one of his famous quote? Work as if there's somebody working 24/7 to take it away from you.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one. It just keeps on coming. Like Elon Musk is notorious for never not working and not sleeping is cool. I don't subscribe to any of this bullshit.
I don't. Yeah.
But I don't. Why? So let's talk about where you were before. So as of 2 years, you now are taking time back. What was life like before this? And we'll evolve into what this is, being current Mike at Pacific GeoSource. What was it prior? What was the darker
life? Was work. You know, work your ass off.
How much work does that mean?
12 hours a day.
Every day? Or
yeah,
5 days
usually every day. And then on the weekends, I wouldn't necessarily go into the office, but I was still on.
Yeah.
I'm still on, if I'm being honest.
So that means, what, 70, 75 hours?
Sure. And then I'm a huge family guy. I've got a huge soft spot for my kids. And so when I'm at home...
As you should. I don't have any, but I hear they're kind of cool.
They're pretty cool. I'm full on with the kids. And so... to me, what Mark Cuban is saying and what Elon Musk is saying and the way I work is when I am working, I'm working. You don't catch me on Amazon.com for 15 minutes kind of trailing off, or... Unless
you're buying new microphones for your podcast.
If it's business related or, you can catch me looking at flights for my next business trip or something like that. But when I'm at work, I'm working. And so it's...
you and I are very similar that way. So I actually, fortunately, was taught the lesson of not working myself to death from talking to several business owners across the U.S. when one of my first jobs was cold calling business owners, selling them consulting when I was in high school. And I just talked to several miserable, by several, I mean thousands, even made a few cry about them realizing that they're not spending time with their family and stuff like that. So I was just like, well, I'm going to do Mizama, get this thing going. I told myself I would never be a business owner because of all those miserable people, but here we go. And I'm going to work 40 to 50 hours max a week. And if that means that Mizama is only going to be half as big as it could be, then it's going to be half as big as it could be. And that's just all there is to it. And I don't know if that ended up leading to success that we had, because this thing, there's no funding or anything like that. It's just been bootstrapped, this whole thing. Some people say it has been. Maybe it would be bigger. I don't know. All I know is that I'm never really burnt out and thinking that I want to burn this place to the ground. But I have talked to a lot of business owners that do want to burn their businesses down to the ground.
I at one point did want to burn my business to the ground. So that is a real thing. I think part of how it makes you speed up is that when you work 70 hours a week,
that becomes life.
Yeah, it's like this whole thing comes around your head and you can't really see past it. And everyone's like, think outside the box. Well, I mean, when you're 70 hours a week and you're tired and you're not balancing life well, it was almost impossible for me to think outside that box. And so when I slow down and breathe, all of a sudden, like, that just disappears. And I can just look at things from all different angles and people's perspectives and points of view. And my decisions are much more sound, much more firm. I feel way better about the decisions I'm making as opposed to kind of waffly, like, well, we could go this way or we could go this way, and I guess we'll just go, you know. And so
that's interesting. So you were feeling like not too sure on decisions, and then you go from more work-life balance and you're more sure. I haven't heard that before. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, what's going through your head maybe is like, I'm rested and I was able to sleep on this, and I'm able, and just my intuition is more on point because this isn't my goddamn life.
All of it.
Which you'd think would be the opposite.
Yep.
You know?
I was convinced it was the opposite. I heard all the same stuff you did, which is like, dude, just work your ass off. And I did. I did all that, and I still do all that. You know, I don't want people that are going to start a business to think like, oh, well, I'll just go at it 20 hours a week because Bud and Mike say you got to slow to speed up.
Well, I didn't say that long.
But in the same token, man, you can't overdo it, and there's got to be some scales of efficiency there, right?
Yeah, what it forced me to do when I made that commitment to myself was delegate like mad. So hired a lot and delegated and empowered a lot of people, which is great. So, okay, going back, so you were, call it 75 hours, and now what are you at today?
It would depend on the week. I would say some weeks I'm as little as 36 hours, and some weeks I'm still up at 75 hours.
What do you think the average is, honestly?
Probably 40 to 50 hours a week.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what about vacation? It sounded like none, but I could be wrong.
Last year I took...
No, I mean not. I mean back in the old Mike.
Yeah, so now it's a lot more. So last year I did 4 weeks of vacation, and this year I'm going to strive to do 4 or more.
What was it? What was old Mike? What was 6 years ago, Mike?
Maybe like a vacation every 2 years.
For a week?
For not even a week.
Oh.
So pretty stark contrast there.
Dude, I could totally see that, man. It's so because when I was working at that consulting firm, I got promoted into management, and I decided not to go to college. I did eventually go to college because of what I'm about to say. They worked me 12 hours a day. We were called vampires as managers. I was a manager 12 hours a day at least. And if we didn't hit our numbers, we had to come in on Saturdays and call the reps. So you're talking 60 to sometimes 65 hours. You worry me whenever you take those off. Everything's good. Okay. And so I would work that. And, well, a lot of bad things happened. One is I made a bunch of money, right? And so I was 17, 18, 19, making 6 figures. Sweet. That's what makes you happy, right? Wrong. I was miserable. I was beyond miserable. Not only was I miserable, sad, well, all the words that you can describe miserable as, pathetic, but my health was miserable. And by miserable, I mean 300 pounds miserable.
Oh, wow.
So I took the money that I made and I would just buy food. And in high school, I played sports and I was in pretty good shape. I mean, I still was chunky from time to time, but like chunky kind of like I am now, not like 300 pounds.
Yeah, sure.
And then my parents, they ended up moving to Oregon, so all the good meals left. I was in Chicago on my own, and I just started eating large pizzas to myself, Burger King, McDonald's, just all this food down the hatch, $50 lunches because they wouldn't let us leave at this place because we were so important. You can't leave, kind of like what you're talking about. Like you can't leave. How could you go on vacation? That's the other thing. You weren't expected. You got vacation time, but if you took it, oh, you're fired. Yeah. So no vacation time. Don't even leave for lunch. We have runners, is what they were called, and they would go and get us whatever lunch we wanted. So I'd be like, hey, runner, go to the Cheesecake Factory, and here's $50. I'd drop $50 on a lunch.
Wow.
destroy it. So obviously blew up, ended up getting a lap band surgery, had to come off. But I was absolutely miserable, working all the time, but hey, you're making money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that's an important thing for people. It doesn't even matter if you're an entrepreneur, which is not a cool thing. If you're just a business leader of any kind, and management, a CXO, meaning C whatever, or maybe you're just in a toxic work environment that has you doing 70 hours. Perhaps take a breath and look around and start recalibrating stuff.
We try and incentivize or encourage our employees to do that. And so vacation, it's probably the opposite. It's looked down upon if you're not taking vacation and you're not.
In your culture?
In my culture.
Oh, that's great. Was it always like that?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
What happened? What happened? What was the thing that happened 2 years ago?
I don't know. I mean,
did you read something?
No,
Did you almost burn down the business? Did you have the gasoline and the matches in your
No,
hand? And you're like, wait a minute.
I burned down my my marriage, my relationship. And
I did that too.
I got a divorce 2 years ago. So
I did too.
A little over 2 years.
Everything
ago,
changed for me when I did that too.
Yeah,
it was awful. But now it's turned out to be great.
It's been, I get along with my kid's mother, my ex-wife, great still. But
so do I.
What it's done for me personally has been, I will look back on that point of my life as a very pivotal moment in my life for sure. And it everything changed after that point. It certainly went down, but has just been on the rise since then. And so,
Mike, this is fascinating. I didn't know this about you, but I went through the same exact thing at the same exact time.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago. Business partner, also wife. I've said this story before, but she ends up leaving me because of how, one thing I did have right was the whole not working myself to death. One thing I didn't have right was the whole my ego flying out of control. And look at this business building, look how awesome I am, and also anger, whole arrogance, a lot of stuff like that. So with her leaving, and we're still business partners because I learned that we built this together and why I take it out on her, but that ended up transforming me. So with you at the time, you're saying that was the biggest pivotal moment in your life, or one of them. Was that at the time painful?
Oh yeah,
happened?
It's I have huge soft spot for my kids, and so anything that I perceived as could be damaging to them was scary. It was change. But I tell you, ultimately what gave me comfort in making the decision was that I was tired of my kids seeing the not real me. And come home.
What was the not real you? Just
come
working?
home from work each day and
start working again?
Either start working, or I didn't necessarily have as much time for the kids as I wanted to have.
How could you if you're working 12 hours a day?
Yeah, working 12 hours a day and stressed out and unhappy in my relationship and unhappy in life. And I was short with my kids. I was not as present for them as I should have been. I got in a lot of fights with their mom. Their mom got in a lot of fights with me. We argued all the time. They were witnessing and watching a relationship that was ultimately going to transpire to them having the exact same relationship as me. Hey, mom and dad just fight all the time, and that's okay. We can resolve to that sort of life too. And through my leadership skills, I told myself, if I want to show these kids any other life possibility, I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to show them. I can't tell them. I can't go, hey, don't do what dad did. Don't do what mom did. my oldest kid's 11 years old. It's really hard for them to understand that.
Do as
at
I say,
11.
not as I do.
Correct.
Do as I do.
So, and so watch what I do. And now they're watching and they're seeing and they're watching this transformation happen. And our relationship is incredible. I got rid of cable 2 years ago as part of the divorce.
What do you mean as part of the divorce?
Just as
she got it in her house.
Yeah, she kept the cable box. Yeah, no, she kept the house, and when I got a new house, I just told myself I don't need cable. It's not what I want to do. I think it also
Well, how old are you, Mike?
35.
Yeah, you're a millennial. I don't know why you had cable to begin with.
Yeah, true. A part of that too, though, was that at that same time, I think our presidents are inaugurated in November, right? Yeah, so
yeah.
I got divorced in December. He was put into office in November, and all that was on the news was bashing our president and fake whatever. And I was just like, look.
Oh, I stopped too. I completely, I stopped following it to the point where it's kind of like, I follow enough to understand what's going on, but I do not care outside of that because I can't rely on anything. So I'm like, I'm just going to focus on my business and my friends.
Have you found that when you turn on the news now, like if you watch that first 45 seconds of the news, that they're trying to get you hooked to the news?
Okay.
How does that make you feel after not watching that for a long time?
Like I haven't been missing out on anything.
Yeah,
I guess. Well, how does it make you feel?
It's almost like a disgust, almost.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you know what I find really interesting is if you flip between Fox or any of the other networks, it's like we're in two different countries.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's weird. So, I just kind of look at it this way. Let me know what playbook I have to run my business by, and then I'll play the game based on that playbook. I can't change the playbook.
Yep.
Me getting really upset about the playbook being the laws isn't going to make them change.
Nope.
So you just tell me and I will adapt and I will make it work. Even if you're saying that I need to be taxed 1% because we do more than $1 million in gross sales and you think that's fair, but whatever.
Yeah, that's
I wouldn't go to that. It's just I had Garrett Wales on the podcast yesterday. He's the founder of 10 Barrel.
Oh yeah.
And we were going down that hole for a while again. Like, do people not understand it's just a sales tax on them?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So anyway, I want to go back to that 2 years thing. Back 2 years when the divorce happened, or when the transformation happened. So it sounds like divorce was a bit for like 3.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So the transfer, like, was there had to have been, maybe there wasn't, but I'm thinking there had to have been some other kind of influence on you outside of your leadership skills that kind of pointed you towards this, hey, relax and smile and be with your family and everything will be all right sort of mentality, the new Mike 2.0, so to speak.
That Mike was always in there. That Mike was always trying to come out. He was always reading books and reading, learning.
What was Mike reading?
So started reading an author called Eckhart Tolle, which he has a couple of books. One's called The Power of Now. One's called A New Earth.
I haven't read it.
Great books. It really opened my eyes to, truly the power of now without, playing it out. But
what does that basically mean?
To me, that means that, stuff has happened in the past, and stuff is going to happen in the future. But you certainly can't control anything that's happened in the past. It's already happened.
Yeah.
You can't control.
Why get upset about it? You can't change it.
Yeah, you can learn from it. You can grow from it, but you can't undo it. You can't undo somebody breaking up with you or somebody saying no or whatever. You can learn from it. And then in terms of the future, I think we all like to think that we have some sort of control over the future and that we can kind of shape our destiny. And certainly we can. I mean, we can do things to position ourselves to end up in the right place.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you were to sit around and just watch cable and do nothing and be like, one day I'll be rich, but I'm going to keep on sitting and doing nothing, probably not going to happen.
Correct.
But if you put up together a plan in the present of just like, I'm going to do this, and this in order to continue to build my wealth, then you're probably going to get somewhere faster than a guy on the couch.
So correct. And you can't let the future or unknown of the future stop you from going to where you want to go. You can put together the best business plan ever. You can have the best ideas outset going.
Business plans are overrated.
Yeah, and then you get out going, and then something from left field that you didn't see comes in and takes it out, and there's nothing you can do about it. I've had sales get screwed up because of acts of God. I've had sales get screwed up because truck drivers pull over on the side of the road and do drugs for 2 weeks. I mean,
what?
You can't, not my truck drivers.
Okay.
All third-party truck drivers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd say 1 out of 100 semi-truck drivers disappears somewhere en route. Either they stop to see their family, or they go on a bender, or they... the whole trucking industry in the U.S. is
I didn't know
very
that.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, not for long. Tesla truck, maybe driving themselves.
Yeah, it's we're well on that way, which is, by the way, not good for asphalt pavements. So
Really?
no.
Why?
Until they can program inaccuracies into the system, everybody will be driving down the exact same GPS path.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you drive down the same path over and over and over again, it wears down that pavement in the exact same spot.
That's good news for you.
So if you've got a 12-foot wide road,
Yeah.
you want those trucks kind of wandering all 12 feet. Well, with the GPS, it is so precise that those trucks will be going down the exact same path every single time.
Yeah, but you want that.
Well, I want the public to be not paving the same road year after year. I mean, as we look around the city of Bend, if we took care of Colorado Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
what other streets around the city of Bend need some TLC? I mean,
All of them?
all of them.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean...
And, it's interesting going to the city of Bend on the amount of money that the gossip of the town talks about is wasted on this and wasted on that. I'm like, well, that's a pretty big thing. Like, if we can cut our paving bill in half when we're a town that constantly needs it, we should probably do that. We should tag Sally in this part right here. Like, hey, Sally, you should talk to Mike because we're trying to save some money.
And it takes time, So, in the way that this happens is that City of Bend goes and does Colorado Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And what did I say earlier? Pavements fail in about 2 to 3 years in Bend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would mean that in 2 to 3 years, you guys need to go do Colorado Avenue again.
Yeah, I'd rather it be 4 to 6 because the other thing is it's not only the money, but it's a pain in the ass to me. Because then I have to wait for the construction and the flaggers and all that crap.
I couldn't agree with you more, bud. I'm in the construction industry, and anytime I pull up to road work construction, I'm frustrated.
Oh, it's my favorite thing in the world. I'm like, oh boy, look at this. I get to go slower.
And in Oregon, how could it get any worse? The only time we have to recreate and see all of these hikes and all of these beautiful places is the summer.
That's the only time.
Well, that's the only time we can construct. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And it's the same roads over and over and over again.
So we would be cutting our wait time to go and have fun or get to business or do whatever in half.
Yeah, or that same, Colorado Avenue, say that takes $1 million to overlay and you're doing it every 2 years. Well, instead of doing it every 2 years, years 3 and 4, the city still has that $1 million. They just get to go spend it somewhere else now instead of Colorado Avenue.
Yeah.
Instead of spending it on the same road over and over
Or
and
they
over
could just
again.
give it back to the people. That'd be cool.
That would be even cooler.
Not going to happen, but, whatever. A guy can dream.
A guy could dream. Start dialing back the gas taxes as opposed to turning them up. So,
So going like the change in the books that you were reading and like the power of now, which as I understand it, as you're describing it to me, is just like the only thing that you're in control of is this current moment and your mind.
Yep.
Perhaps, I don't know. That my philosophy is stoicism, and that's basically the one thing I've learned is like that's the only thing I'm in control of. I cannot control you. I cannot control Chelsea. I cannot control the weather. I can't even control my own body because I can get the coronavirus. I could get hit by a truck. be in the hospital. I could get my body can be thrown in jail.
Yep.
For something I did or did not do.
Yeah.
So the only thing I do have control on is my reasoned choice, my mind.
Yep.
So, and that's only currently. I only have control of it right now. I don't have control of it a minute ago on the things I just said. I just said that. It was even recorded. I mean, it's said.
It's done.
I can't. Well, I can make sure other people don't see it, but you heard it. Chelsea heard it. I mean, it's there.
Yep.
So why get upset about it?
Correct.
Like, oh, I didn't say that stoicism thing quite right. It was actually this, or that. I should have talked about this pillar. No, I said it. Move on. And in the future, well, what the hell? Why get upset about that? It hasn't even happened.
It turns situations that the majority of people get super pissed about into laughing situations.
That's kind of funny. I hadn't thought about that.
So, for instance, I was flying back from, I think it was Charleston a couple of weeks ago, and we got up to Seattle. Seattle to Eugene flight is at midnight. Mm-hmm. We get down to Eugene, and we're circling the runway, and the pilot gets on and says, hey, it's too foggy in Eugene. We might not be able to land. And if we can't land, then we're going back up to Seattle. And, of course, the whole airplane's like, I'm just kind of sitting there. You know, it is what it is. And we get back up to Seattle, and I'm at the front of the airplane, and the flight attendant's right there, and we get up at the same time. And she looks at me with this look in her eye like, is this guy going to be pissed and, like, come unglued on me and just, you know, vent on me? Or what's he going to do? And I just kind of looked back at her, and all of a sudden I just started cracking up. And she started cracking up, and then like 5 rows behind us started cracking up, and everyone's like, what are we going to do about it? You know?
Nothing.
Like, did anyone want the fog down in Eugene? Did anyone want to be back up here? And the flight attendant looked at me, and she just put her arm on my arm and said, thank you so much for laughing. Like, that was about to be really ugly. And I said, I know, I've been on plenty of airplanes. I know how this goes, and nothing we can do about it. And so it turns the future in, when it throws you shittiness, you just kind of laugh at it and you go, okay, that was shitty, but that, you know, nothing I can do about it. And same thing when good stuff happens to you. Instead of looking at it and saying, why me? You look at it and you say, oh, thank you. That felt good. I'm glad that happened to me.
When good
I'm
stuff
appreciative.
happens?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like the difference between hindsight and foresight, and how we look at those typically as most humans. What I mean by that is most humans look at hindsight as, you know, I'm happy that happened. That was really good. I learned from the failures. Stuff like that. Some people really dread in it, but a lot of people are just like, yeah, you know, that turned me into the man or the woman I am today. Mm-hmm. And then foresight is like, God, what if Mazama like closes, and what if Trump goes to war with Iran, and what if you know, all these doomsday scenarios to you personally? What if my relationship doesn't work? What if I have to leave Oregon? What if I had to do this? What if they take away whatever? Okay. But when you realize that you've lived for however many years, whether it's 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, that hindsight stays consistent, right? You keep on looking back at it as like everything's okay, but you still look at foresight. It's like, oh, why don't we just take our perception of hindsight that everything's been okay and apply that to foresight? It's all been okay before, so why get upset about what's about to happen, or worry or get anxiety about it? Because look it's all worked out.
And I feel like the companies that something happens to them, say a Sears, you know, how could a company that size go from where they're at to where they're at now? Were they not looking forward? Were they not paying attention? Were they not learning from the past? You know, I don't know. But I don't think that we can take the fact that a company the size of Sears Roebuck collapsing means that Mazama Media is going to collapse the next day. They're in a completely different.
No, that's never worried.
And so I too have the same worry as you. What happens if a competitor comes along, or what happens if somebody copies our niche? And honestly, bud, I used to hide from that. I used to hide our niche.
How can you hide that? Oh, you hid.
Oh yeah, niche. I would hide our niche. And
so you even talk about your differentiator.
I would with you, but I wasn't necessarily
advertising
that and telling people, hey, this is what we can do. Yeah. I was a little bit paralyzed. I was scared that somebody else would see that niche and say, yeah, that looks great. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to do it better.
Yeah.
Well, that was 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's copied the niche since, and we're still moving along, and I need to be okay with the fact that I discovered something that is unique and truly game-changing, and be okay with that, and be okay with sharing it, and be okay with talking to people like you about it, or posting on LinkedIn about it, and letting people know, hey, we're here. Yeah. We know what we're doing.
You're going to grow a lot faster. You're going to be established as the industry expert because you are the only one. And then you are going to get somebody that's going to be a competitor to you, but it's just going to make you better. And it's going to make the industry more known. Like it actually, what would end up happening, whether you know it or not, or this is a hard thing to think of, but it's true, is your competitors help market and solidify a new product or service. Something that's brand new is just like, I'm not really that sure. Like we were talking about before on camera, where people are like, some of your clients take years and years and years. Like the City of Bend, you've been talking to them for 7 years, but it's scary because nobody else has done it and you're the only one talking to them. Well, somebody else comes and talk. Well, first of all, that kind of scares you. Like, oh yeah, I have heard about that before. And like, I guess there's other companies out there doing it. I guess it's more legitimate than I may have previously thought.
Sure.
And then they come to you because they see you all over LinkedIn like you are, or they see, or they knew that you were the first one and you've been in business much longer than these bozos, or whatever the case is. And then the competition also makes you like have to be looking at becoming a better business, as good as you can be, right? So it is going to happen one day. And when it happens, I think we're both in the right mindset of just like, cool, let it. Like when Mazama started, like digital marketing agencies were not really a thing. 6 years ago, they weren't. Now everybody and their grandma has one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like building, like you just have people operating out of their grandma's basements and whatever. Like it's just like that's.
Yeah, they're out there.
Oh, they're at, and I see all these different things. Like I saw one that was really interesting the other day, and I let it worry me for about, I think, an hour. Which is longer than normal. No, it was long. It was probably like 2 hours. But I started seeing a bunch of ads, and this was 2 years ago. Yeah, 1 or 2 years ago, and I started seeing a bunch of ads that are directed to me on, poorly directed to me, because these guys that are digital marketing agencies were targeting a digital marketing owner, but they meant to target owners, but they didn't exclude other digital marketing agencies, whatever. So it just says on how good they were at their job. But there was more than one. There was a few that said in the ad, we'll give you positive ROI or it's free. And I'm just looking at that like, what the fuck? How are you kidding? And there was more than one. There's like a bunch of them popping up like they were copying each other. And I was just like, no, because in the beginning is the time that takes a ramp up period, and then you're gonna have a client be like, well, you said it's free, and it's just like we have to learn and we have to like test a bunch of stuff, and then around month 2 to 3 is when the positive return on ad spend happens. You start going off. And so it kind of was like, is this like the new stuff that's happening? And I'm like, how am I gonna like, no, that's not gonna end up working. And then I was just like, what? You haven't been looking at competition anyway, just ignore it. Don't let it change what you're doing when it comes to how you're pricing, because what you're doing is working right now really well. And so I didn't. And then all of a sudden those ads, I haven't seen one since. So I'm sure they got those clients on and they were cheap as hell. Well, I'm not paying you. Didn't work. And you have all that time and money gone. So I don't know. That was interesting. So what else happened with Well, not what happened. So I understand you end up like taking all these books and stuff that you end up learning, and you go through this experience where you're like, okay, it's going to change. Did the hour thing happen overnight where you're like, okay, so was that just chip away 1 hour a week, or how did you?
And I don't really keep track of my hours. I just
Neither do
work
Yeah.
when I need to work and don't when I don't. I think it was making the conscious decision to balance my hours. I think that probably started traveling. So I've got clients all over the United States, Walmart and Bentonville and Costco and BNSF and Home Depot. And so I get all over the place. I started making the decision about 2-3 years ago to, instead of flying to Atlanta for 24 hours, having my meeting with Home Depot and Coca-Cola and whomever, and then getting back, I'd stay for 48 hours. And I would spend 24 hours working and then 24 hours checking out Atlanta or doing something fun or going to a game or golfing or,
Okay. I do that too. When I travel, I have at least like a day or at least half a day of exploring.
It's been a huge game changer for me. And that day that I spend exploring, I'm still on. I'd like to say that I'm like not thinking about business, but I am. I'm thinking about the meeting that I was just at, or how I could have done it better, or my next meeting, or
But you're also heading to a Falcons game.
I'm also heading to a Falcons game.
Yeah.
And if I can get a Home Depot person to come with me to that Falcons game,
sweet,
even better.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot more of that lately, and that's been awesome. I mean, checking out cities like Charleston and New Orleans and Austin, Texas, and Knoxville, Tennessee. I mean, these are amazing places. Charleston, South Carolina.
I haven't been.
Oh man, the first state to secede from the Union during the Civil War was South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And they rang a bell in downtown Charleston to signify that they were seceding from the Union.
Still?
And then within a number of years, the first shots of the Civil War were fired in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you walk through that city, the amount of energy that you can feel within that city is like unlike anything I've seen across the United States. Every almost crazy good and bad thing that's happened to us in the United States has happened in Charleston. And so it's a cool city.
I'll have to find I'll have to reach out to some potential clients in Charleston and make an excuse to fly out there.
Do it.
Because I geek out in Philly. I have some big clients out in Philly, and I just go down to history, like in Constitution Hall and the Liberty Bell, the Museum of the Revolutionary War. I spent, like we're saying, like the extra day, I spent like 6 hours in there. Yep. I was just like soaking it all up. They did a really good job of showing both sides of the Revolutionary War, like as unbiased as an opinion as an American museum I think could be of Britain's side.
That would be interesting to see.
It is, and the one thing that was interesting on it, there was a lot, but I'd say the two big ones was the whole rallying cry is, if you know your history out there, is like no taxation without representation. That was the main thing, and Britain would look at that as like, well, okay, we understand that, but it's not like you guys aren't getting anything. Actually, we should be taxing you more. And we say they had a bunch of redcoat. They basically had redcoat barracks that were assigned to the border of all of these of the colonies, protecting from Native Americans. And they were very active at wanting to attack. And so they were protected by like an army, that their taxes, and they'd be like, it's not going to anything. It's like, well, that was going to more than you think, including your safety. That and, in history, and what I was taught was just like, we're all getting in, like, let's revolt and everything like that. That wasn't the case at all. Actually, like the first American flag was a big beige flag with a Great Britain flag in the corner, as in to say, well, this is our independence, but in case this fails, don't kill us. Because you got to think it from their side meaning the American side. This is really scary to go. You're going to war with the biggest power at that time I think the world has ever seen. Like the sun never sets on the British Empire. Like that was at its biggest extent right then.
Yeah. With America, probably.
With America, I mean, they're in India. I mean, all over the place.
Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna go to war with these guys. And so anyway, going in there and just geeking out. And the other thing I like about just going off about history is, you ever notice how it can help you predict business?
I could not agree with you more, and it's about all I read or watch is documentaries on history and books on all sorts of things. Last documentary I just watched was a Ken Burns PBS documentary, 3-part on the Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can't relate business to what happened in the Prohibition, then I mean, you need to pay a little closer attention on what's going on, the different dynamics, the way that you can sway populations, the way that a 10% minority can sway an entire group of people into prohibition. And I mean,
and then the businesses that are formed from that
and
as
why
well.
they're formed, and the organized
because
crime
of a public
that was
need.
formed from that.
I think that shows a lot to we were talking about this yesterday as well, on the other is like voting with your pocketbook, and as opposed to like voting with your wallet as opposed to with a ballot. It is more effective than voting with a ballot, because if you really want alcohol and if it's illegal and you're willing to pay for it, then there's going to be a business that's drummed up to make sure that you're able to get it. So just because it's illegal doesn't mean that it's not going to happen and businesses aren't going to form. Another example I say quite often is just like that you could relate with more is the organic movement that's happened. That wasn't from some law that happened. That was from the market saying we want to not eat pesticides anymore, and it went from being in like a couple of like super hippie stores to now there's complete chains like natural grocers that are built off of the organic movement. And I don't remember the last time I was in a grocery store that didn't have an organic produce section. That there's no law saying that. So I find that fascinating.
To me, if we look at the supermarkets, grocery stores, the one that's most fascinating is the bags that we put our groceries in on the way out. Having been an Oregonian my entire life, I specifically remember as a child going through grocery stores and all there was paper bags. We're a wood product state. Of course we're going to have paper bags. And then it went to plastic bags because we were cutting down trees to make paper bags.
And now the plastic bags are killing the turtles.
Now
you don't get a bag.
You can't. Yeah,
and you'll like it.
You got to pay for a bag, and if you're gonna get one, we're back to paper. Or
well, isn't it funny how like again the economy ends up adapting? Like so this is the situation. So now here comes a boom in the reusable plastic bag industry. And that was, due to law in that case, but the economy came in. There wasn't a law saying, okay, somebody needs to make reusable bags. That was just somebody was just like, here's a big opening.
And I think sustainability, from what I've seen, works best when the business benefits from it.
So, what do you mean by that?
So, a couple different examples I've got for you. So the hotels, you've got this cool little card placard that says, hey, here at Marriott we care about sustainability.
We're green,
and we don't want to
don't make us wash your towel.
We don't want to wash your towels too much, so hang them back up. Well, of course that's a good thing for Marriott. That's a cool little card that gets to show sustainability, but less washes is easily less money spent by Marriott. So that's a win.
They actually did a new thing that they saw that I'm stoked on, because I'm not a big fan of plastic, which is, I think they're rolling it out this year. It should be completely done. But all those little shampoo bottles, they're getting rid of them and just doing dispensers. And I was just like, thank God. Like, what's the point? Like, first of all, I only use like 1/5 of one anyway if I'm staying in a hotel at a time, and then you don't refill them. You just throw them out. So That's huge. And speaking of plastics and stuff like that, that brings us to another new business niche that's happened, which is the reusable water bottle epidemic, which is a good thing. But when everybody's complaining about plastic bottles, do you have a lot of reusable water bottles?
I mean, I have a Yeti cup that I use for just about everything.
Yeah,
so.
I've been gifted like 20. I mean, there's 2 behind you right now. One is Habit and the other is Mazama. And Facebook's given me like 4 or 8 or something, and clients have given me 2 or 3, and Hydro Flask is here, so everybody gifts each other Hydro Flasks, and our oceans are getting filled with reusable water bottles now. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. But it's a good thing. It's good that we're not using plastic water bottles, but the market's starting to hit saturation in Bend, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so another example of how sustainability pays is our grocery bag conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a cost that went out the door to people.
Yeah.
And now if you want one, it's a nickel. So that went from a, cost thing to a revenue generating thing that now makes them look more sustainable. And so it's all a good thing. But what I'm getting at is that I'm not sure that our product would sell as a sustainability product unless it paid. So 15% cost increase for 100% life extension.
That pays.
Well, if you put that into anything else, do you play golf?
No, but I can understand the sport.
Okay, so let's say golf.
Okay.
Because golf seems to be that sport that everybody would do anything to get that much better.
Not me.
If you pay
mountain biking, I'll get whatever I can do to be better at that.
So a golf club that's 15% more that hits 50% further, or 15% more that is 100% more durable, or whatever attribute that you're trying to get.
Well, then it sounds like you're a snake oil salesman, Mike.
It does, right? It's too good to be true, which is, I think, why we're having the difficulties that we do have in places. Is that?
But you have case studies, no?
Oh man, you've
been around for 11 years or 10 years.
I say difficulty. It is one of the easier solutions to implement and to use. The difficulty is that, in my mind, we should be able to walk into the city of Bend, have a conversation with them. The light bulb should go off based on the fact that there's all of these other agencies around Oregon. City of Medford is on their 8th year in a row of putting this all over their city.
8th year in a row?
8th year in a row. No problems other than...
How much money have they been saving?
At this point, they're saving millions each year.
How many millions?
They're not able to give me an exact figure, but basically what's happened is over this 8 years, they're now, instead of repaving the same streets like we were talking about Colorado Avenue, they've moved on to other streets in other places. So people are getting their streets paved that haven't had their street paved in 50 years.
That's cool. Be like my street. Yeah, let's tag Sally here too. Sally is the mayor of Bend. She's a friend of mine. But
yeah, and so
Sally, I want you to talk to Mike.
Cities like
pave my street.
Cities like Bend and Salem and Eugene and Portland, what they're trying to do is keep their main, what they call arterial roads open. It's Colorado Avenue, or it's, 3rd or 97, or those need to stay open. That's where commerce happens. That's where money is made. Well, if you're constantly chasing your tail trying to take care of those streets, how am I ever going to get to Bud's poor residential street out in the middle of Podunk Bend?
Yeah, and the other thing that you don't end up thinking about too, like, so, a big thought or the big movement is obvious. Well, there's a lot, but global warming, right? Okay. So if you're only needing to pave a street once every 4 years instead of every 2 or 6 to 3, whatever it ends up being, but 50% less, if you had to guess to pave Colorado, how much oil do you think needs to be used to make that happen?
A lot.
right?
A lot.
It had to be. I'm guessing. I'm really not that good of like an oil calculator, but I mean, I'm guessing we're talking in the area of like maybe tens of thousands of barrels.
Oh yeah, easily tens of thousands of tons of
Mm-hmm.
asphalt. Not finished like rock in asphalt, just asphalt binder.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got that, and the stuff before that was just thrown out. So we have that, and then we're not including in this calculation, or we can now, the trucks and the fuel to do that job. Because how many trucks do you think it would take to do Colorado?
A ton. I mean,
5, 6, 20?
No, way more than that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't go that far. I mean, a truckload of asphalt probably paves out 75 to 100 feet per lane.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, you'd take a lot to do Colorado.
All right. So you have the truck, and we all know that those trucks just spew out CO2 into the atmosphere, which causes warming. And so you have that going, and you have the asphalt. And now you're reducing that by 50%. And now we're also reducing the amount of time we have to wait by 50% because there's less road flaggers on the road. I guess the only people this is a bummer for is road construction workers.
But it's not, because if they're not doing Colorado Avenue,
then they're doing other ones.
then they're doing somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so it's also 50% less of the public works agency's time spent on Colorado Avenue because they don't need to focus. That one's good to go. Let's go focus on something else. So
Yeah.
Great example of this is the Jackson Hole Airport in Wyoming.
Okay. Been there.
Same climate as Bend, lots of temperature swings. It's got snow plows, it's got snow, it's got studded tires. So they were repaving their airport every 6 years. And if you could imagine, shutting down a runway is not easy.
No.
A lot of pissed off people. And so they utilized our fiber product 10 years ago, and here we are. They budgeted to repave it in 2019. We went out, we looked at the runway. Hey, Mr. Airport Director, this doesn't look so bad. He's like, hey, I agree with you. Goes, we're going to hold on to that money for 2 years. I said, okay. And then we went and met with him a few days ago, and he says, we've decided to go to 2024.
Holy shit.
So that runway.
When did you pave it?
2009. 2009.
Yeah, so you're going to be hitting 6
So
years.
not only did we double the life, but now we get to start having conversations with, let's talk to the city council of Bend. What would that mean?
The Redmond Airport, I mean, they just had to shut down, and it does piss. I mean, especially with how big the Redmond Airport's gotten because of our guy. I mean, we have a direct flight to Chicago now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it sucks too. It's
and
a red eye.
So what is if it cost $5 million to repave your runway, what does that mean to you? What would that mean to you as a business owner if you had allocated a capital expenditure towards something? And then that capital, say like your HVAC system, or you needed to put a new roof on your building or something.
Yeah.
And then you got to that point and you looked at it and you're like, you know what, it's good to go. I don't need to spend this $5 million.
It means that if I was debating whether or not to hire an additional team when it comes to $5 million, I could.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Or some other pet project that Jackson Hole has in their airport. They want to build a shelter for something, or they want to build a new terminal, or
yeah. Well, I don't know. You were asking me specifically.
Yeah, correct.
I was thinking Mazama. I'm not going to build a pelt shelter.
I'm the same way. I would if I had $5 million that I had set aside.
Yeah.
I could think of a lot of different things to do with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Exactly. So okay. So you have you do have the great case studies that are happening. So what happens when you go and you explain that to a bureaucrat? And they're just like, yeah, but what's this? Is it a bunch of yeah buts? I mean,
it's a bunch of yeah buts, and I think that
but that's Jackson Hole.
Correct.
What does that even mean?
At this point, I don't know. I used to buy that kind of argument and be like, all right, I'll let you have it, City of Bend. I get it. What does that even mean anymore? I don't know. Why? And this is true. I'm not talking badly about City of Bend, but every single public agency we go to has that same reaction. Well, that was them, and they do things differently over there. And It's not, guys.
Yeah.
I don't care if we're in New York, Florida, Colorado, Bend, Oregon. It's rock and it's glue.
Mm-hmm.
And you stick the two of them together in different ratios and different amounts. It still fails the same way. It still fails in tension, whether in New York, Florida, I don't care.
Yeah.
The pace at which it fails and the manner in which it, like the type of cracking that happens, depends on where you're at. But that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't adding tensile reinforcement to that, no matter where you're at, add some level of benefit?
Of course, but I don't know. It seems simple, but I guess
It does, right? And so I think it would be very interesting to have some of these conversations with people on the other end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is somebody at the city of Bend that is interested in this and that wants to see this take place.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be beneficial to them to be able to stand on a platform and say, hey, these are the changes we made and this is the results that it has for you, the taxpayers.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to see that happen, because as a taxpayer here, I wouldn't mind having my road paved again on my personal street. But I want to go back into really quick, diving into this change that you've had in the company, and it's still being successful after you decided not to work yourself to death. What other things do you do to like unwind, to not let the tension? I mean, even in like a 40 or 50 hour work week, what's your normal day look like?
Some sort of outdoor activity is the balance. It's a hike, it's a run up a hill, it's a trip out to the dunes on my dirt bike. It's more recently it's been a lot of skiing. I like the adrenaline. I do. I enjoy it in doses.
Yeah.
I will admit that I used to enjoy going to a casino a couple of times a year and gambling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy that anymore. I feel like the business is a gamble enough. I feel like each decision that I make is risky enough.
Yeah.
So that whole like needing to gamble more with money is not interesting at all to me. Sports betting, yeah. And if I am gonna go do it, it's like, all right, I'll put $20 out on the table, and everyone kind of is like, Mike, you're such a cheap. And I'm okay. When you're right, when it comes to gambling, I am very cheap. So
yeah, you're not wrong though. What we do is a bit of gambling. We don't know what the outcome's going to be.
We don't.
It's educated gambling. We're putting it. We have control over it. It's not like putting a ball into a wheel, but we don't know where the ball is going to fall, though.
Yep.
We can control it a little bit, but it can easily go south. Do you meditate at all?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
I do. I do quite a bit of meditation.
How did you get into that?
Different forms of it. Reading Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now.
When did you read that?
I read that probably about 10 years ago now. 10, 11 years ago.
So you've been meditate for 10 years?
Yeah. I've been practicing since I read that. Yeah.
How did you have time to do it when you were working like 70 hours a week?
I'd have to find that time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely not something that I was as proficient or I didn't do it as regularly back then as I do now.
Mm-hmm.
I also find it interesting that kind of the lighter your life is, or the easier your life seems to be happening, the easier it is to meditate. Meditation 10 years ago was difficult because I'd sit down and start to breathe and start to relax, and then just thoughts would just racing in, and I'd get hard on myself for that. And, why can't you settle down your mind? Man, the more that I've slowed down my life, the easier it is to just sit back. And I sat in the car, was a little early here, and so I sat in the car and meditated for 20 minutes before I came in here. And
nice.
a lot easier these days. So
yeah, I do that too. So it's 20 minutes for me, and I try to do it twice a day. And I notice if at least once, and then there is occasional days where it doesn't happen every day, and I can tell because it's harder for me to get to sleep.
Yeah,
it's weird, but I'll be like sitting in bed, and thoughts will be racing through my head, and I'll be like, God damn it, you forgot to meditate today, man.
You know when it gets me? It's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
How so?
I'll just wake up, and all of a sudden my mind will just
yeah,
thoughts everywhere, racing.
So I was having that problem very recently. It wasn't until I introduced transcendental meditation in my life. That was 3 months ago, and I was waking up every morning at like 2 or 3, and I was coming haggard, and it was that same problem.
Yeah,
thoughts racing, everything like that. And then I started. I was meditating before that. I use apps like Calm, and I would meditate. I wouldn't say daily, probably 3 days a week. Sometimes I was on Calm and I was doing it daily, but I wouldn't have the. First of all, you don't go to the same place. Have you ever done transcendental meditation? Oh, you'll love it. You've got it. That get taught. It's amazing. It's basically you in a matter of seconds. When you sit down, you're given a mantra. You go through. It's like 4 days, an hour a day. When they teach you how to do it, it's actually not that difficult. But you have this mantra, and when you sit down, wherever to start meditating, you shut your eyes and you start saying that mantra. You within seconds transcend into a place that I cannot really describe.
Sure.
And what ends up happening to me is my leg muscles will start twitching, my eyes will start fluttering, like right away, and little jerks in my neck. It's as if I'm sleeping. It's because they studied it. They've done some deep studies on transcendental meditation, where they would read the mind, and it was doing very similar things. It wasn't REM sleep, but it was very, very similar what the mind is doing. And so I could go into transcendental meditation stressed out over something business-wise, and then 15 to 20 minutes later, I'll just walk out of it being like, what was I upset about?
Yeah.
It's just over. And then I sleep, which I thought that sleep and I were just never going to be a thing. I thought that there's just too much on my mind, so just get used to being tired. Now I wake up actually like before my alarm and stuff. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I recommend it to you and anyone. I mean, cool. It's especially if you're already in the practice of doing meditation, takes you deep. It's fun. So if you're meditating, do you do any? Have you ever had a morning routine? Do you do one currently? Yeah. Not
really. I don't have any sort of daily routine, to be honest with you.
No, that's fine.
I don't.
I go back and forth between having one or not. So.
It's to me, the freedom of choice is everything, and the ability to.
It's deep and true.
It's the ability to make a choice or make a change and be okay with it. I mean, I to be honest with you, I think I welcome more change now than I do routine. And so it's stupid things from switching the hand that I brush my teeth with to some days I'll say, you know what, I'm not going to have a cup of coffee for the first hour and just see how that goes. And sometimes I just won't drink coffee that day. Yeah. But my daily routine is definitely cups of black coffee. So,
So you used to be afraid of change?
I think we're all instinctually afraid of change. Yeah. I think that's buried in there, and it's something that you have to overcome. But
I wonder why that is.
I think it's
security,
survival. It's survival. It's caveman days, in my opinion. It's hey, this is working and we're still alive doing what we're doing here.
Let's stay alive.
Let's just stay alive.
What are you coming in saying we should change stuff and it'll be better?
Bud wants to leave the cave before the sun comes up because he wants to get a jump on the deer.
No.
Let's not do that. We always leave the cave when it's light.
Yeah.
But if you were the guy that had the cojones and knew in your head, like, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. If we just leave the cave 30 minutes before the sun comes up, we'll be standing where the deer are when the sun comes up instead of trying to walk up on them.
Yeah. And that's something that, you transcend into like for us in marketing has been like this push, like as far as the Facebook side has gone into like Messenger. And we're like, nobody's been really paying attention to this move. And we're like, that's it. And when we have clients be like, no, we're used to Facebook. We're used to not even be used to that. I mean, Facebook didn't used to be a thing. Like you're just advertising on the radio and shit. So I'm just like, stuff changes and people are going to be like, nah. And the people who are listening are like, see, look at deer. Deer right here. It's pretty cool. That's what you're on the cusp of too right now. You're having a problem getting like city officials to come out of the cave early to get their deer. The problem is that I'm paying for the deer. They're not paying for the deer.
And it's not just city officials. It's everyone. It's everyone along the entire chain, from city officials to consultants and engineers to contractors to producers. They're good. They're doing just fine right now. Let's look at the contractors in the Bend area, the asphalt producers. Knife River and High Desert Aggregate. How long have those people been around? Before it was Knife River, it was something else, maybe Morse Bros or something. But those people have been making money in Bend and the Bend area for a long time. I represent change. What does that mean if Colorado Avenue isn't repaved every 2 years to the producer? That's got to be scary. That's got to be real scary.
Yeah. People aren't getting paid off. I don't know what's going on.
We've got to convince them that, hey, it's not scary. Bend is. You've got to understand that everyone wants to protect their job here. Just because we fix Colorado Avenue, they're going to find other streets to pave. Those public works employees still want to do something. They want to stay busy. So we're going to go find other stuff to pave. And it's not till we've paved all of Bend that we could possibly get to the finish line. But then by the time we've paved all of Bend, the whole cycle will start all over again, and we'll just...
Yeah, it's now just the entire city is being repaved instead of only a third of it or wherever the heck it ends up being.
So for me, what I would get most frustrated about is as these cities pass bond measures that ask the citizens to put more money into the street system, and then nothing changes. They don't do anything different. Sure, they go repave the streets, but they do it the exact same way they did it 10 years ago that caused the problem that we're at now.
All right, well, we'll have to make a change. Get people commenting on here being like, no, that's not what's going to happen anymore. We want change. I'm sick of freaking you guys asking for more money for the potholes.
And so that leads me to my next point. As a marketing kind of salesperson yourself, is it easier to sell something that works or something that doesn't work?
Obviously something that works.
So for the asphalt industry, those producers that are nervous that business is going to go away, what happens if you start selling something to the public that works?
You end up getting more and more business.
I think public's actually going to be more likely to say, hey, we'll spend a little bit more money on the asphalt.
Yeah.
We'll let you raise the gas tax. You're doing a better job with our streets. There's less potholes. There's less cracks. There's less construction. We're not redoing Colorado Avenue every 2 years.
Yeah.
I think that the public is going to be much more willing to say, and maybe not the public. What about the city councilors who are providing the funds to the Public Works Department to redo the streets? Well, the Public Works Department goes in front of the city council every single year and says, hey, we need more money. We need more money. And as a city councilor, I'd be sitting there going, I don't want to give you more money. I still got potholes everywhere. I still got constituents yelling at me. I've still got problems. I'm reluctant to give you more money.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the public works department going in there and saying, hey guys, we did things a little different this year. We added some technology, we did some research, we made some changes. We're doing roads better now, and here's the proof. Now can we have some more money so that we can do more of better?
Yeah. Seems pretty simple. I think Medford would be a great case study. Maybe we can end up pulling that and putting it overlaying when we're talking about that. And not only get Ben to wake up, but this would be great for any city to wake up to.
It's rock and it's glue. I don't care where you're at in the United States. It's rock and it's glue. It's
do it right. Get the rock and the glue in there. Do it right. Come on.
Yeah.
So we talked about, well, what are some other business books that have been influential to you? Well, I guess the first one wasn't Patience Is Now. Is that right? Or
The Power of Now.
Now.
Yeah, and that's more of like a,
that's more philosophy.
Philosophy book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I really like Malcolm Gladwell's books. I think that they didn't necessarily teach me anything business-wise other than just critically looking at things and looking at things from different angles, thinking outside of the box. I just thought his books were really fascinating in that. One of them that I thought was really fascinating was called The Innovator's Dilemma, and I don't remember who the author of that was.
I don't either.
It follows...
I know of it. I haven't read it.
It's great. I would highly recommend it because I think it's very applicable to quickly, fast-paced changing industries. Mm-hmm. And basically what it follows is the computer processor industry. And from the start of computers in the 70s to we quickly went through different floppy disk and different size disk to rapid generational growth of processors. And in order to do that, you had to completely retool your factory when you went from, say, a 10-inch hard drive to a 6-inch hard drive. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like you could just take the same machines and do that. So the innovator's dilemma was, what of these innovations do we need to get behind? And the companies that got behind every single generational change of hard drive went out of business because there wasn't a long enough sales cycle. By the time they tooled up, started making that hard drive and sold it, the next generation came along and that thing was obsolete.
Yeah.
And so there was basically all of these decisions that need to be made to decide, what do I put the weight of the company behind? And do I try and jump 2-3 generations ahead and spend a long time working on that? Or do I hit every generation? And do I follow every fad that comes along? Or how do I pay attention to which fads are actually going to be here for the long term? So Intel, they're still here.
Sure.
Processor giant, they figured it out. They were able to find the right amount of technology to grab onto and then wait, and then, okay, we're going to grab onto that. And then wait, and then we're going to grab onto that. So
interesting. Yeah, and that's also something that you have to deal with in any kind of business, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like what is the thing that you should jump on, paying attention to competition, fads, stuff like that, like.
Yeah, or when somebody comes to disrupt your marketplace like Uber did to taxi drivers, taxi drivers could have easily dealt with that.
How?
Create an app. Follow it. Just do the same thing. Give the same service.
Well, it's like asking Sears to make an app.
Correct. Correct. But that's where Sears...
But that's what Walmart's doing. That's why they're still competitive.
That's right.
Actually, more than competitive. They're actually a lot larger than Amazon still when it comes to like retail.
I'm aware of this.
Yeah.
Walmart's one of our best customers. They are innovating. They are absolutely innovating.
Yeah, and so I think that's excellent. Like it just shows that you don't have to die if somebody new comes around. Like you can change with it. It is okay. Unlike Blockbuster, where we have the last Blockbuster in the world here in Bend, Oregon. and they actually had it's on record. The minutes of it was on record where they were talking about Netflix being a big disruptor, and the board members said no, because people value and they want to come and see the neighbors and hold the actual DVDs and have that whole experience. When the truth is that people rather lie naked in bed and just fucking put on a movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, look at Walmart and Amazon. I am positive that there was hundreds upon hundreds of people at Walmart that said, we don't need to chase that.
Yeah.
It'll never be successful. This whole idea of second day delivery, I'm one of those people, bud.
Yeah.
I still look at Amazon knowing what it takes to ship things from point A to point B, doing it all the time in my business, and scratch my head at how in the world they're able to do what they do and stay in business and stay profitable and stay moving forward the way that they are, because what they're doing is not easy. It's game-changing and it's revolutionary, and everyone, and I mean everyone that wants to stay in business, from Home Depot to Target to Walmart to you name it, is having to follow that business model. So
yeah, and it's a tough one to follow, but it's funny because it's more than just that, like the diversification of them having their own version of Netflix and their own version of Spotify and Amazon Web Services, and the hardware that they're making, from their Kindles to their cheap tablets, which is actually kind of, they tried to compete with the iPad and it wasn't working, like by making a nice one, and they're like, well, screw it, let's just make a really cheap one. So that worked. And then they're like, you know what we should do? We should bug everyone's house. And everyone was like, yeah, you should. And so now we've bugged our houses.
Yeah.
So cool. Alexa goes everywhere and stuff like that. So it's even more deep than that. It's just what I find interesting about that, though. Well, before I just say, what do you think of Jeff Bezos?
I don't have a lot of opinions on the various leaders around, the Musk, the Bezos, the Richard Bransons, the Mark Cubans. I really, to be honest with you, don't look up to any of those figures that are out in the media. My leadership figures are all people that I do business with. So I've got a vendor, a guy in Pittsburgh that used to work for Levi Strauss and has just got a wealth of information, and I just gravitate towards him. When he says something, I listen.
I have some of those too. I really don't. I'm in the same camp with you.
I find it hard to relate to somebody that's just on TV. I mean, they're going to tell you whatever they want to tell you about that person, and that's what you get to consume.
Yeah, I guess the problem that I have, though, is how everyone you should hate Amazon and you should hate Jeff Bezos because he's just on top, and you just have all these people just like hating on it, even though they use it. That's the funny thing, is the hypocrisy behind it. And all the people being like, oh, Jeff Bezos, and he's like taking the world over and everything like that, but I'm going to order Amazon, stuff like that. Just like kind of like when people hate Tom Brady for being on top.
Yeah.
And I just don't, so we made a game. The game's called capitalism, and he's killing it at the game. Why hate on someone who's like the best at a game? Like, I don't understand why do you think people do? Why is it that people hated Michael Jordan that weren't Bulls fans, or hate Tom Brady that aren't that aren't Patriot fans?
It's an interesting one, and it's definitely a good question. I think that there's definitely an element of jealousy there, and there's an element of who's that guy? I'm just as good as that guy. And the truth is, you're absolutely right. You are just as good as that guy. You're just not doing it. He is. And, I remember back in 95 when the whole United States hated Bill Gates too, and it's like, this guy's a monopolistic pig that's making too much money. And fast forward 15, 20 years. And I mean, don't tell me Bill Gates is a pig. That guy is a freaking superhero. Yeah. He is doing amazing things with his money and his life, and he is a great human being. But back in 95, we were definitely calling him a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I think about it too. So if you call it the game, so Bill Gates is good at the game of capitalism. Musk is good at the game. Bezos is the best at the game right now. And so he's been putting in all these hours just like Michael Jordan would. So, you had people that are against him, but people still were just like, wow, look at that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would ask for Michael Jordan during the time to be like, he shouldn't play basketball. But that's what people are saying. Like, he shouldn't have the business. He shouldn't have Amazon. It should be split up.
Yeah.
Just be like, you should take one of Michael Jordan's hands off. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just good at the game. Why? But that's the things. That's the craziness I occasionally listen to.
I like thinking about that kind of stuff. I remember I got my minors in business at Oregon State too, and really loved the business classes. I found those super fascinating. And one of them was Business Administration 453, and we were talking about leadership. And at that time, there was some big hot buttons about Wall Street and some of the bonuses that Wall Street execs were taking. Mm-hmm. And so the question to the class was, do they deserve the money that they make or do they not? And my argument was, well, it depends, but yeah, if they're doing for their company, if they made their company $2 billion of profit last quarter, so what if you give them a $25 million?
Yeah.
Like, same thing with Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
If the guy brought you 6 championship rings,
he should pay. He should be the highest paid.
He should probably be the highest guy on that team.
Yeah,
so that's capitalism.
But nobody argues about that though. Isn't that amazing? I haven't thought about it. Like, no, I've never heard anybody be like, "Oh, Michael Jordan shouldn't have been making that much money." That wasn't an argument.
Correct. And so it's if you don't want it to be that way, that's fine, but it's not capitalism.
No.
And the thing that scares the crap out of me about that thought
equal outcome thoughts.
Yeah. What is the incentive? What would be my incentive to have put in those 75-hour work days if I get to the end and everyone's like, hey, good job, but
we're taking all your stuff.
We're taking it because you did a good job and you did something good, and there's no reward at the end of it. And honestly, bud, the reward at the end of it, I mean, I don't look out like at some rainbow and say like, oh, that, there's the pot of gold, I'm eventually going to get to it. It's just big, long process of getting to it.
You wouldn't do it.
Correct.
And neither would I.
No.
So you wouldn't do it and I wouldn't do it because even though I'm not working those ridiculous hours, I am putting up the risk. I am stressing about like times that when the business dips down and you have those oh shit moments. Other people don't need to, like, when you're working for a company, you don't even know that that's happening unless it's a publicly traded company.
Yeah.
But you're a private one, you don't even know, so you don't have to worry, so there's no anxiety about it. So I'm dealing with all that. I signed something here that says if Mizama goes under and I can't afford to pay the lease, too bad, I personally guaranteed it. And I have to find a way to get thousands of dollars together every month to pay for this big building. And people are like, oh, if the business goes under, you're done. No, it's a personal guarantee.
Yeah.
No, like you take the house, you take the truck, you take everything until that's paid off. Yeah, exactly. So would I do that if I knew that there was gonna be somebody with a gun saying, yeah, good job, now give me? No.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Why should I put up everything under my name and then if it all works out, you take everything? So you're not going to get innovation from us.
Yep. What about going to medical school for 7 years and racking up $250,000 of student loans, and then you're a doctor and you're making $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year? I mean,
no point.
They do that because
to end up making money and live comfortably. You'll have a few people that are looking to do it. At that point you'd have to have a system correction. You'd have to make it to where, because you really wouldn't have anybody. Why? Because you'd just be in debt for the rest of your life. So you'd have to have a system correction where if we're going to go down the socialist healthcare thing, then you have to provide, which by the way, that's universal healthcare is the only thing I really am for, because that's a long story, but
sure.
But I feel like that should be a thing, and maybe that should be rethought. And then there is virtuous people that would want to be doing that because it is like helping out people. Like, I'm going to help people get from being sick. And so you'd still have doctors as you do in other countries. But
and you still have teachers that love to teach and are okay with making $50,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
But I tell you what, if we doubled our teacher salary from 50 to 100,000 a year, how many more good teachers would we have, and how would that translate to our students?
Well, we could start to do that if we didn't pay so much for a goddamn asphalt.
If we weren't putting all this money elsewhere. That's right.
I guess with that we'll conclude. This has been fantastic.
It's been great.
Thanks, Mike.
Bud.